What if your Mercedes infotainment system has settings you've never seen in the normal menu? The NTG 4.5 system contains a range of technical and hardware-related information that can help with troubleshooting, configuration, and understanding how the system operates. But there's an important catch. Some of these options are designed for diagnostics and technicians, not everyday users. In this video, we'll explore Mercedes NTG 4.5 HW settings, what they mean, which options can be useful, and what you should avoid changing. What is Mercedes NTG 4.5? NTG 4.5 is one of Mercedes-Benz's co-mand infotainment generations. Depending on the vehicle and configuration, it can control or provide access to functions such as navigation, radio, media playback, Bluetooth, telephone connectivity, and various vehicle information features. The exact hardware and available menus can vary between Mercedes models and production years. That is important because an NTG 4.5 system in one Mercedes may not have exactly the same hardware configuration or menu structure as another. When we talk about HW settings or hardware settings, we're generally referring to technical information and configuration options associated with the physical components and functions of the infotainment system. These settings can be useful when diagnosing problems, but they should not be treated like ordinary user preferences. Accessing the HW settings. The first thing to understand is that the engineering or service menu isn't the same as the standard Mercedes infotainment menu. Depending on the specific vehicle, software version, and head unit configuration, the procedure for accessing technical menus can differ. That's why it's important not to assume that a button combination or procedure from one Mercedes will work on another. Before entering any technical menu, identify your vehicle's exact model, production year, and NTG version. And before changing anything, record the original configuration. A simple photo of the screen can save you a lot of trouble if you accidentally modify a setting and need to return it to its previous state. Most importantly, don't change a parameter simply because you don't recognize its name. Some options can affect communication between different components of the vehicle, while others may relate to calibration, diagnostics, or hardware configuration. Understanding the main HW settings. Let's look at the types of information you may encounter. Display settings. One category can relate to the display hardware. This may include information about the screen, display configuration, or communication between the head unit and display. If you're troubleshooting a black screen, incorrect display behavior, or another visual problem, technical information in this area can sometimes help identify where the problem is located. However, simply changing display parameters isn't a guaranteed solution. The correct configuration depends on the hardware installed in the vehicle. Audio hardware. Another important area involves audio. The NTG system communicates with the vehicle's audio components, and the available configuration can depend on the sound system installed. A standard audio setup and a premium factory audio system may require different hardware configurations. Changing audio-related parameters without knowing the vehicle's original setup can result in missing sound, incorrect audio behavior, or other problems. So if you're checking these settings, focus first on identifying the existing configuration rather than experimenting with it. Radio and tuner information. The radio section can provide information about the tuner hardware and related configuration. This can become useful when diagnosing radio reception problems or investigating whether the head unit is correctly configured for the installed hardware. Again, the exact options available depend on the vehicle and NTG configuration. Bluetooth and telephone hardware. Bluetooth and telephone functions are another major part of the NTG system. If you're experiencing problems connecting a phone, maintaining a Bluetooth connection, or using hands-free calling, technical information can help determine whether the issue is related to the infotainment system or another component. But changing Bluetooth-related hardware parameters randomly isn't recommended. Start with basic troubleshooting before touching engineering settings. Navigation and GPS. Navigation-equipped NTG 4.5 systems can also contain technical information related to GPS and navigation hardware. If the vehicle struggles to determine its location, takes unusually long to establish positioning, or displays inconsistent navigation information, checking system diagnostics can be useful. However, a navigation problem isn't always caused by a software or hardware setting. The antenna, wiring, GPS reception, or other components can also be responsible. Camera and connected hardware. Depending on the vehicle, the infotainment system may also interact with additional hardware, such as cameras or other connected components. The available configuration will depend heavily on the original equipment installed in that specific Mercedes. This is one of the areas where you should be particularly careful. A parameter designed for one factory configuration may not be appropriate for another. Which settings should you change? This is probably the most important part of the entire video. Not every option inside an engineering menu is meant to be changed. Some settings simply provide information. Those are generally much safer to inspect because you're not modifying the system. Other settings control configuration. These can be more sensitive. Then there are parameters associated with coding, communication, calibration, or specific hardware. Those should generally be left alone unless you know exactly what the parameter does and have a way to restore the original configuration. Think of the engineering menu as a workshop rather than a customization menu. You wouldn't adjust an unknown engine component simply to see what happens. The same principle applies here. What can go wrong? Changing the wrong NTG setting can potentially create problems that weren't there before. You could experience a malfunctioning display, loss of audio, Bluetooth connectivity problems, navigation issues, or instability within the infotainment system. In some cases, restoring the original setting may solve the problem, but if you don't know what was changed, troubleshooting becomes much harder. That's why documenting the original configuration is so important. If you're working on a customer's vehicle or your own daily driver, don't experiment with critical parameters just because they appear interesting. Best practices. There are a few simple rules that can make working with NTG 4.5 much safer. First, identify the exact Mercedes model and NTG configuration. Second, document the original settings before making any changes. Third, modify only one parameter at a time. Fourth, understand what a setting does before changing it. And finally, if a parameter involves coding, calibration, vehicle communication, or critical hardware configuration, consider using proper Mercedes diagnostic equipment or consulting a qualified technician. The goal should be troubleshooting and understanding the system, not creating a new problem. Mercedes NTG 4.5 HW settings can reveal a deeper side of the vehicle's infotainment system. They can provide useful technical information about hardware, connectivity, audio, navigation, displays, and other components, but these menus aren't designed as a playground. Some options are safe to inspect, while others can affect how the system communicates with the vehicle. So before changing anything, know your exact NTG version, record the original configuration, and never modify an unknown parameter without understanding its purpose. If you own a Mercedes with NTG 4.5, let me know your Mercedes model and production year in the comments. And if you want more videos about Mercedes hidden features, infotainment settings, diagnostics, and useful car technology, make sure to subscribe.